our viewers. You're watching MRIU TV, and these are the Poco News. My name is Katana Caroline Nora, and in the headlines today, we have the last member of the Brazilian Indigenous Committee who has been found dead. In Colombia, Venezuela restores full diplomatic relations. Peru president's sister-in-law sent to jail amid corruption probe. Let's have more of the stories in details. The man of Hall, who lived in isolation for 26 years after other members of his tribe were killed by illegal loggers and miners, was found dead. Let's have the report.
The man, whose name was never known, had lived in isolation 26 years after other members of his tribe were killed by illegal loggers and miners in Ternary territory, Brazil. The last of his people, a Brazilian indigenous man known as the Man of the Hall, has been found dead, decades after the rest of his uncontacted tribe were killed off by ranchers and illegal miners. The man was found in a hammock in a hut in the Ternary indigenous territory in Rondônia of the border with Bolivia on August 23rd, Brazil's National Indian Foundation. After losing everyone he knew, the man refused to contact with the outside world and supported himself by hunting and raising. His nickname was derived from his habit of digging deep holes inside the huts he built. Authorities in Brazil didn't comment on the cause of man's death nor his age, but said there were no signs of his violence or struggle. They also found no evidence of presence of anyone else in his home or around it. Local media reported the man's body had been covered in macaw feathers, prompting one expert to speculate that he had known he was about to die. Namaganda Esther, MRIU TV.
Thank you so much, our reporter, for those details. Colombian envoy to Venezuela arrives in Caracas as the neighboring countries normalize relations that were severed 3 years ago. Let's have more of the story.
Colombia and Venezuela have restored full diplomatic relations after a 3-year break. A new Colombian ambassador, Armando Benedict, arrived in Venezuelan capital on Sunday. Benedict was welcomed by Venezuela's Deputy Foreign Minister, Brenda Pena Ramirez, who tweeted that our historical ties summon us to work together for the happiness of our people. Colombia's new left-wing president, Gustavo Petro, and Venezuela's socialist president, Nicolas Maduro, announced on August 11th that they plan to restore diplomatic relations which were severed in 2019. Caracas had been broken off their ties with Bogota that year after members of Venezuelan opposition tried to cross Colombian territory with trucks loaded with food and medicine. It also crossed the borders due to an attempted coup by the opposition with support from the United States. Embassies and consulates in both countries were shut down and fights between neighbors were grounded. Petro, Colombian first left-wing president, said he will recognize Maduro and work with the Venezuelan government on several issues, including fighting rebel groups between the countries, which led to military relations in both countries. Namaganda Esther, MRIU TV.
Peru president's sister-in-law sent to jail. Peruvian court, Yenifa, held in pre-trial detention in latest criminal injury targeting president's inner circle. Our reporter has more of this story.
The sister-in-law of Peruvian President Pedro Castillo has been given 30 months of pre-trial detention on Sunday. Castillo has often referred to Yenifa Paredes, his sister-in-law, who he and his wife raised her as their daughter. Paredes has been charged with a crime and she will spend time in jail as prosecutors continue their investigations. Castillo, who has been in office for 13 months, has already survived 2 impeachment attempts. He denies any wrongdoing and has accused prosecutors of being complicit in an attempt to remove him from power. Prosecutors have opened 6 criminal investigations against him, including one for alleged obstruction of justice in firing a former interior minister. They also asked that Castillo's wife Lilia Paredes be banned from traveling abroad for the next 3 years because they cannot detain Castillo while he is still a president. Namaganda Esther, MRIU TV.
Thank you so much, our reporter. Let's have a quick commercial break. We shall be back with the news.
A glance at the AIM regionalism empowerment. When you take a sport or either take a deep look at the way the AIM regionalism department is devoted to the practice. It is hands-on to every participant and backed by the well-stocked studios of Royal FM and AIM TV. The department has fed the global practice with outstanding personnel backed by professionals in the practice, and it is seen from the products of the different students. Take a glance at every sector. The Royal FM has all the required machines and personnel to release a well-backed student. The AIM TV now has some of the most competitive programs in the media world. It is Mutesa One Royal University Journalism Department.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. As we go on, the National Front, a body representing the main parts in Tunisia's opposition, has announced that it will boycott December's elections. Let's have more of the story.
The National Salvation Front, a body representing the main parties in Tunisia's opposition, including Ennahda, has announced that it will boycott December elections to replace a parliament dissolved by the president, Kais Saied. Saied called the December vote after he suspended the Ennahda-dominated assembly and dismissed Prime Minister Hichem Mechichi in July 2021, before later pushing through a new constitution that critics say enshrines one-man rule. The National Salvation Front has definitively decided to boycott the upcoming elections, said Ahmed Najib Kebi, the head of the alliance, which is made up of the parties and movements opposed to Saied. The elections will be held under the supervision of a body that is not neutral and is loyal to the ruling authority, Chebi said.
Thank you so much, our reporter, for those details. Further on, Burundi's President Evariste replaced his prime and a top aide in a high-level reshuffle on Wednesday after warning of a coup plot against him. Our reporter has more of this story.
Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye replaced his prime minister and a top aide in a high-level reshuffle on Wednesday after warning of a coup plot against him. Security Minister Jarvis Ndirakobucha was sworn in before Parliament as the new premier of the Central African nation. He succeeds Alain Guiravin Bunyoni, who was served along with Ndayishimiye's civilian chief of staff General Gabriel Nizigama in the first major reshuffle since the president took office a little more than 2 years ago. Lawmakers approved the appointment of Ndirakobucha, a former chief of Burundi's feared intelligence agency. Ndayishimiye, a 54-year-old former army general, gave no reason for Bunyani's dismissal, but last week he had warned of a coup plot against his government.
Thank you so much, our reporter, for those details. India and Japan will deepen cooperation on defense, with India inviting investment by Japanese companies and plans for joint military exercises involving their air forces. Let's have more of the story.
India and Japan will deepen cooperation on defense, with India inviting investment by Japanese companies and plans for joint military exercises involving their air forces, the two sides said on Tuesday. Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Sai held talks in Tokyo with his Japanese counterpart Yoshikazu Hamada ahead of 2+2 talks bringing in their foreign ministers. The two ministers agreed that the early conduct of the inaugural fighter exercise will pave the way for much greater cooperation between the air forces of the two countries. India, like Japan, is bolstering the military to tackle what it sees as increased security threats. Both countries are increasingly wary of China's growing military might and assertiveness.
Thank you so much, our reporters, for the details. We've come to the end of our Poco Poco News. Don't forget to follow us and find us on our social media platforms, that is Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Follow, like, and comment. Katana Caroline Nora, have a blessed night.